We are here to bring you everything and anything surrounding Porsche. I'm Mike.
I'm Aaron.
And this is P-Car Talk. Welcome to another episode of P-Car Talk. I'm Mike.
And I'm Aaron.
And we got a massively packed show. Tons of SUV talk. I know you guys are pumped about this. But,
somebody's got to buy them.
Yeah, but we got some rumor mill stuff we're going to hit you with at the beginning of the show. And then we'll talk about some of the stuff that is spotted at the ring in the second half of the show. And we'll discuss some of the features and if we're interested in that and why we're interested or not interested. And let's go from there. So let's get rolling. So Cayenne Coupe SUV wars.
That spoiler, it's all I can think of when you say Cayenne Coupe. That got me. That intro video. Just
Gotta have it. Gotta have it. Trading in the 964 for one.
Is that what you're doing?
Yeah.
I think we gotta have it because we want to see races. That's what I think.
Yeah, hopefully you'd have some intervention on it. I'm not trying to talk trash about it, but the whole point is of bringing it up because it just seems like there's this whole war behind SUV power now, right? There for a while it was super sedans, right? These sedans with like monsters amounts of power and things like that. Not that I don't like those things. I mean, power's cool. We've talked about this before though, as far as the show, like when is too much power too much, right? Like when isn't Porsche ethos back in the day, wasn't it more of do more with less type of situation?
Lightweight.
Yeah.
It doesn't need a lot of power.
Nimble.
But that's what the driving experience is about.
Exactly. So where we're leading with this is the Cayenne Coupe. They're said to have made, now this is the rumor, so it's not 100% confirmed yet, but the rumor mill is obviously they're probably going to make a Turbo S e-hybrid.
How heavy is that thing going to be?
Yeah, great question. I don't know. Let's just put it this way. They didn't discuss weight. So
I mean, it's already a big car. And then now you got to put extra batteries in it.
Yeah, but they're claiming it's supposed to have some monster amount of power. They're saying it's going to be like one of the highest horsepower SUVs out there, right?
Are they directly lifting it from the Panamera?
Not a whole lot said about that, but they were said it could make anywhere around 680.
Man, getting to the grocery store is going to be quick.
Yeah.
Or getting to the mall or wherever it's going, that's
really. It's like
not the racetrack.
It's like, well, you got money, so you know it's going to be expensive. So the whole purpose, I guess, for them to make this vehicle, not the Cayenne Coupe, essentially, but maybe it is the Cayenne Coupe. They haven't gone on record with say this, and we're kind of just filling in the blank here, is to compete with the Lamborghini Urus or Uranus, whatever you want to call it. But who cares, right? Like at the end of the day, like
it's a mean looking SUV though.
I mean, like really, we're duking it out. You know, when I say I'm claiming myself under the Porsche mark because I love Porsche, but like we're going toe to toe with like I guess other SUV companies. You know, like get the
and that's a sport SUV too. And I don't know if that same thing could be said for the Bentley Bottega or the Rolls Royce Culligan. I mean, those two it's a different style.
Yeah.
But, I mean, just to go directly after Lamborghini, I mean.
And I think it's maybe because it's more of a coupe, the Cayenne Coupe thing.
The whole reason for the spoiler is 700.
And it could be going back to what you said before. I don't know, maybe there's not a lot on R&D there. Maybe the R&D's already been done because the Turbo S e-hybrid already exists, like in the, the Sports Turismo, or you can get that in the Panamera. So maybe they're just going to lift all that stuff and stick it in this car. Or SUV, it's not a car, whatever they're calling it. I mean, I guess the point is I guess we talked about this long time ago, I guess on episodes, I don't remember the number, but when we talked about Macans and said like, if you had to be the family guy, I guess, and you couldn't have your toy, or maybe you could have your one toy, but you needed a daily and you were affluent enough to have something.
Fun daily.
Yeah. You were affluent enough to have something. Well, I mean, what would you do with this? Like, this wouldn't be your toy. I wouldn't think this would be your toy. I know it's going to carry a monster sledgehammer price on it. I mean, this car is probably going to be what, if you had to guess, probably in the twos, maybe.
I would say. I mean, it has to be somewhere around there. That's where
maybe 180 to like, fully loaded 205, something like that. Yep. I don't know what else you do with this thing. Like it's an SUV.
For trips.
Yeah. I mean,
great.
I just meant as far as like, if you're going to go spend 200 on something, you go spend something, maybe on an RS or something like that for your track rad.
Maybe they already have one though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think this is the type of guy that maybe this is for.
I still get most of that experience. It's not as raw, but I'm still getting the power. I'm getting good amount of power out of it.
Yeah, I think that you have the guy that has the wallet and wants to carry the sledgehammer too, and I think this is who that's for. Maybe same thing with the the sports, the Turbo SE hybrid, like what is it, Gran Turismo, like that. If you don't want a wagon and you're more of an SUV guy or more of a truck style guy, maybe this is your car then, right? Maybe that's the theory behind this. And not talking about the whole ethos behind the actual Cayenne Coupe itself, but just the mark of the Turbo SE hybrid or whatever.
It's one fully loaded car too. So
yeah, that's where my headspace goes. I mean, obviously, if there has to be a market for this. We've already talked about this a lot before, but there's somebody who has a wallet for this, obviously, and more than one person. I don't think they're going to have.
Maybe that. But like we said, there's not a lot of people that like. So maybe the Panamera and the Sport Turismo. Maybe you hate both of those things, but you really would need something that carries 4 people.
Good point. Maybe you got a couple rugrats that you need to carry around. Maybe you just got a big dog.
Couple dogs. Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever. Maybe
some show dogs.
Maybe you just want to consume the planet and you don't want to carry anybody else but yourself. I don't know. Like. Not that I'm getting on an earthy, not getting on an earthy tip, but who knows? And maybe you just have a lot of FU money and you just don't care and you really like Porsche. That works too.
Maybe your neighbor just got an Urus and you're like, no.
You're like, nah, bro. Gotcha. I'm gonna show you what you're like.
Well, it starts at almost that 700 horsepower mark. They're still tuning.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's a turbo car, so you probably easily get another 100 horsepower.
1,000 horsepower. Oh,
I'm sure. I'm sure that day is not that far away from us where we're going to see 1,000 horsepower SUVs on YouTube, especially with this Lambo, especially with this Cayenne.
Cars, yeah.
Production cars. And then, the Mercedes Coupe
so do
thing
you
they
call
have.
It, so we have supercars. Are there super SUVs?
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe they're going to develop a new category for it.
Or hyper SUVs or whatever you would call it.
And then it goes into the next question I have is it really safe to be moving around that much mass? At any level? That thing probably, if the Turbo S, I'm just totally guessing. I have no numbers, nothing to support this, but totally guessing. The thing probably weighs, what, if you had to guess, 5,500 pounds probably?
I was thinking about six.
Yeah. I'm talking about, with the batteries and all that stuff. So probably 5,500, maybe 6,000 pounds. Just something at 6,000 pounds, it could probably do 200 miles an hour. Dude, if that's not a rocket from a Navy destroyer, I don't know what that is. That's a bomb.
Yeah. The only safe place would be, highways like the Autobahn or places where you can really open it up. But again, we have speed limits. So it's really, there's a show factor in the States.
Yeah, I think this is a big, a flex on you type of deal.
Yep.
I've got money. This was the most expensive thing within the land.
I hate Lamborghini.
Exactly. Or, it's just one of those things. It's like, yeah.
I have a Urus, and I want the Cayenne too.
Yeah, it's like, oh, guess what? You want to be flashy in Lamborghini? Okay, cool. Well, I'm going to go get my Cayenne Coupe and still have more power than you. Or whatever, whoever lives in that area. Or, I can see people in certain parts of the world where this could appeal to them, where...
Sandy desert places.
Yeah, exactly. Where their money falls out of trees there and they don't pick it up because they have too much more money somewhere else and it's not worth their time to stop to pick it up. Like those kind of places. But yeah, where I'm going with this is it's kind of interesting in the sense of where Porsche's mindset is, right?
Does it actually fill a need in the marketing, or does it just fill
or are they catering to a certain demographic of people? Have they figured out that are they making cars for a certain group of people? Because, I've been told from a certain marketing person, not to name names within Porsche, they're like, look, half the stuff we make nowadays, all those SUVs, all those cars, barring the actual race technology ones that we aspire to own, the RSs or the GT3s, they're making them for people in Asia, that are...
That's a good guy. They do have yeah.
And he openly said to me, and like I said, I'm not naming names because I don't want him, to have any backlash for it. But he was like, look, they don't drive cars over there. They are driven. That's how wealthy they are. You think they care about a GT3 RS over there? They don't. And if they do own one, they use it for, unlike Americans, they use it actually it lives at the track. They don't even take the thing home. They have so much money, they just rent it. They own the car. They keep it at the track. They are driven to the track in their expensive car. They get out of the car, then they go drive that car, then they get back in the car.
It's a cultural power difference.
Exactly. I mean, and he was describing, because I didn't know, because I've never been to any of those countries. He's like, there's a lot of countries that are like that, where drivers, that's a job. Yeah. If you have enough money, you're not driving the car. You're sitting in the back. You're being driven. It's a, like you said, it's a show, a status symbol. It's a show of power. So maybe that's who these cars are for. It's the guy who maybe doesn't want a limo but wants a really fast car and wants to ride in
Probably
it.
do exclusive option because of the turbo.
Oh, I'm sure they are. And they can do all types of kind of crazy stuff. And I think that's why we're seeing this influx of high-end luxury SUVs. And, not to give an explanation of it, but I mean, that's why the $350,000 Bentley SUV exists. I even said to myself, I'm guilty. I'm like, who's buying that? Well, those people are buying that because they're being driven in those things.
No, I mean, you can't. And I guess that's how you would make money, because if you don't have that top tier, you don't know if somebody's really going to spend the money on it.
Mm-hmm. We're one of the few cultures, the Western cultures that do stuff like that. When, we'll go buy a car that you're supposed to be driven in, and you'll go drive it instead of hiring a chauffeur and be driven in it and those things like that. We're one of the few cultures that does something like that.
Because we look at doing things on our own.
Mm-hmm. And I think we look at it from an experience standpoint. Like, they look at it as transportation. They're like, look, I need to get over here. Like, I'm not going to get stressed out sitting in traffic. I'm going to drink, my Moet and Chandon in the back seat. And you can get me there and get me to my private plane. Like, no, I'm not driving my car there. This is ridiculous. Like, you want me to operate this thing? Pff, waste of my time.
Yep,
I can pay somebody to do that. So I think, I know that was a long tangent, but I think that's kind of who these, to give a little bit of background for those that are out there that maybe don't know, that are on the same page with us, that are kind of like, why are they making these cars? Why are they? I think that's why they're doing it. They're making it they're not making these for us. They're not making these really for Americans, I don't think. I mean, that's
good. That's a good thing. I mean, I got to get out of that mindset and more of a world mindset.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a global thing, right? They're a global company. They have to think of it from a standpoint of like, okay, well, who's going to buy these cars, right? Like, these people have the money to do it. Their currency is super strong. They're very affluent. Their culture is this. How can you be driven in the back seat of a GT3 RS? Well, you can't. Obviously,
and the profit margin for that has to be giant, because there's not much more over a regular Cayenne. I mean, there's obviously differences, but
yeah, exactly.
In the scheme of things, that's got to be a giant profit.
I mean, let's face it too. At that level, if you're being driven around, you're either being driven to the airport, so you have bags.
To your G6.
So you need storage. So what does that entail? Okay, well, that is an SUV. That's something that has luggage space. Okay, you're going to go shopping. You're probably going to buy $10,000 worth of clothes or whatever you're going to go buy.
And that's just a sweater.
Yeah. And you need a back seat. Or not a back seat, excuse me. You need trunk space. Again, sports car doesn't make sense. So
just buy two of them, have a follow car.
Yeah, that'd be great, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's a show of power. So I bought two.
Yeah.
I'm driven in one, and then I have one for my things.
I just have them drive around me because I like the sound of them. I actually don't even get in them. How funny would that be? Yeah, I just roll the windows. Hey, do a pass. Oh, good job. Roll the window back up and
get back to my phone.
Back to what I was doing. Back to Instagram. But that's the I think that's the chaos behind all
Almost drove it.
Yeah.
Look at me.
I know what it sounds like.
Wild man.
Yeah, I know what it sounds like.
Lady.
But yeah, that's interesting nevertheless. So next thing in the rumor mill, this is kind of a big one.
Yeah, it does look like a big one. So the Panamera is going 2-door coupe.
Yeah.
And convertible.
Yeah.
Now speaking of heavy.
Yeah.
Man,
But here's the what's the theory behind that though? Because so this is supposed to be the modern day 928, essentially, is what they're saying.
It definitely is going to have those looks.
Mm-hmm. Now bear with me, guys. I'm not supporting this, but this is what they're saying. The reason why behind it's front engine.
Got it.
Panamera's front engine makes sense. Okay,
V8.
Well, it's V8. That's what the 928 was. Okay, well they're going to take the doors off it, make it a coupe. Okay, that's what the 928 was. I can see that. In the place, I can see this more than I can see the 700 horsepower Cayenne Coupe turbo SE hybrid.
A different competition they're going to go against.
Yeah, because like what this actually fills a gap where they don't have, right? They don't have a GT car. They try to claim their GTS as a GT car, but it's not really a GT car. A GT car is supposed to have room for people in the back seat. A GT car is supposed to have trunk room.
Yep.
Like, let's face it. Let's be honest. We love the 911, but it just doesn't have those things.
No. Unless you have tiny
Yeah, and like you can get custom luggage. I mean, you can spin off and say, okay, and you can make arguments in all these other areas. Let's dismiss all that for a second. Let's talk about an actual car that Porsche offers in the GT realm. It doesn't really exist. So this actually, to me, makes more sense than the SUV, right? The super fast SUV or whatever they're making, or even if they didn't make the super fast one, even if they just made the Cayenne Coupe, like the fact that they're making, like, that doesn't need to exist. Like, this seems like this should exist more than the other one. What do you think?
It does seem like a gap between the sports car and the SUV.
Yeah, because I mean,
and not a wagon.
Yeah, you think about it from a competition level. If you're making, you're competing in certain levels. Okay, you have the BMW M6, right? It's a powerful car. But it's a GT cruiser at the end of the day. They don't, turbo, they don't make any dismissals about it. It's got a big trunk, right? Oh, yeah. It's a big car. I think that's the theory behind this. They're going to make this so it's going to be a modern day 928. So they're thinking they're going to call it the 929. It's going to be a front engine V8.
So are they? I mean, because the Bentley has their GT3 class they race in. Is Porsche going to bring this out for racing?
Mm-hmm.
That would be
no talk of that, but that's a great question.
Man,
I mean, they could
hear a V8 against some of the Mercedes GTs, GTRs.
I mean, yeah, we're at the track and we see those, the AMG GTRs there. They got the BMW M8 now.
Yeah,
Coupe.
Maybe that's what they're thinking.
I think that's what this is. Like, I think this may be, dismiss what I said about the M6. Maybe this is the M8 competitor.
Yeah.
This is going to be a V8, probably V8 twin turbo 2+2, big ass trunk. Big body boy, it's going to probably cost 200 plus, like fully loaded. But I think maybe that's who they're shooting after, those big sedans, I say sedans, but the big coupes, I guess that's what they are. Like, they used to be sedans. They chopped the doors off and shrank them a little bit and made them coupes. But, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that this is something that,
I think it's a cool exercise. I mean, everybody. I think there's a resurgence for the love of the 928. I don't know how well it was received back in the day, but now, I mean, it had some weird looks in my opinion. But for them to get another use out of the Panamera is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a thought. I mean, I don't know if that was ever a beginning thought when they first started doing the sedans, and they were like, you know what, we should do a coupe. But then, I mean, that's going to be cool. That's going to be a neat thing to see, I mean, body line wise for a convertible. Yeah. You think they're going to do a hard top convertible or a soft top? Have any renderings?
Probably are. No, they haven't done it. I've seen one rendering of a coupe. But again, this is all rumor mill stuff. But there are talks about Porsche. Actually, they've talked about this car, But let's go ahead and take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Right. Thank you guys listening to PCAR Talk so much. We appreciate you guys so much. I can't say that enough. Please go to pcartalk.com and check that out. We have a virtual membership on there. We are on there on Tuesdays meeting with you guys. Become a virtual member. We would solely appreciate that so much. Also check us out on YouTube. We release videos on Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Help support the channel. Everything we're doing is trying to bring the community closer together. We definitely appreciate that. Also, when you go onto YouTube, if you could subscribe, maybe pass it along, make a comment, we really appreciate that. Again, circling back to pcartalk.com, there is a newsletter created on there. Please put your information in there. That way we can keep you up to date on anything that's coming forward and anything that we're going to be doing moving forward and all the exciting things that are coming out. And again, the virtual membership is on pcartalk.com. Now back to the show. All right, guys, we're back from break. And the second half of the show, let's talk about some of the stuff that was spotted at the ring. So 992 Targa Carrera 2 and 4S, 2S and 4S, zero camo on it, excuse me.
No camels.
No camels. No camo. Full finished model, painted everything, like nothing to hide. So that should be probably coming out, I'm assuming, very shortly, just because it looks like a production model. Just like how the Carrera Cabrio just got launched. They're actually, out. They're not hiding that. So I think that this is right behind that group, I guess.
Yeah, it's a tier up as they're going price-wise.
And it's interesting. I guess Targas did well enough, in the 991 series that they're going to continue on with it.
They definitely look cool no matter what.
I think they look cooler. And that kind of leads me to, before we could talk about it first, and then we can circle back. It's not that big of a deal. So what are your thoughts on the newer Targas compared to the older Targas? What do you think on that? Do you like the older ones better? Do you like the newer ones better? What are you thinking?
Well, that whole glass top that lifts up and all the mechanics that make it work, I think that's cool. Mm-hmm. I think that's a cooler factor. I think I would trust the modern rigidity over the older Targas.
I agree with that.
I feel like no matter what, there's always going to be a leak in the older stuff because, one, it's just old, so it happens. There's deprecation that happens over time.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just never been a fan. I'm not as much a fan as the older as I am the newer ones, and I don't know if they just did proportionally. It looks
better. A little different. Like the older one's a little wonky to you.
The older one reminds me more of I bought a hard top for something and I put it on there.
Yeah,
that type of thing.
I could see that.
Where this one, and maybe that's technology where the glass just wouldn't curve right, and this is more of a coupe design.
Yeah,
even more of a bubble.
Yeah, the more of the modern development can make it look more solid, like as far as a coupe goes, as opposed to kind of like how they had to do it back in the day, maybe.
Yeah, you got to do it off the bar and all that stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then design-wise, colors, choices, all that.
I can see that. Now, let me play devil's advocate with you for a little bit with the newer ones, like from a longevity standpoint. Do you think with all that moving mechanism, all that failure, like...
I mean, I'm sure
compared to like, okay, the old one, you're snapping it in and out, and then you're folding it, and then you're putting it in the, the frunk, and
exactly.
Then you're done.
There's no parts to really break on it.
So I'm saying that could be a plus in that category, right, for the older ones if you went that way.
Yeah.
You have
one to the mechanics versus the electronics.
Yeah.
But I would
price-wise though too, like they're super expensive, like the newer ones.
That's true, and that's back to those mechanics. I would hope that Porsche, when they did their testing and things, were like, okay, it's gonna have 100,000 times where it can go on and off, that type of thing, where it's made for longevity. But
I would say out of any of the marks that probably exist, that one's probably gonna be the most lasting one. Obviously, they're probably not going to use like parts bin special to make sure that thing works properly. I mean, you think about that's a lot of moving parts, like you said. That's a lot of heavy glass. That's a lot of stuff. I think it's a cool car. I think it looks cool. I like the theory behind it, as far as like driving in it and having kind of like the Targa, having some airflow. I see that car living in only certain parts of the world, right?
Yeah. I mean, you're trying to get your best of both worlds.
Yeah.
But that always doesn't work out.
Yeah. I don't really see somebody who's a Chicagoan buying that car and storing it for the winter and then driving it for very seasonal days occasionally and putting it away again. That doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But I think like a, southern tier type of car, like, anywhere California wise, anywhere basically warm, essentially, like where it's
but
warm.
Not hot.
Yeah, where it's warm most of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, even that car probably could handle the hot. I mean, it's got AC. It's
That's
probably like great AC, even if you take the roof off. I mean, that car can live in Florida, no problem. Next question is would you ever own one?
Old or new, or either one?
You pick.
New, yes. Old, maybe. I just don't know. I just, again, back to the looks wise, for me, I just don't. I don't think it looks as cool as I know a coupe does.
Yeah.
And I don't
how
know
about that Targa we saw at the Revs Institute? That's a perfect example. That was an old one, the blue one.
Yep.
It was lowered on the Fuchs and had a turbo tail on it, but not the T-tray one, like the early Carrera tail.
Yeah.
What do you think of that car? Do you think that car looked cool?
I think it's cool, but it's the glass roof, the roof line.
Yeah, too much glass for you. I could see that.
Not shape. I mean, I like the openness. I like when we live in Florida. I wouldn't
Yeah, I
mind-
think you're referring to the back window
Yep.
portion, right? Like
Yep,
that
that's
looks
it.
kind of wonky, right? Like the whole wraparound glass like situation. Is that what you're talking
Yep,
about?
that's
Yeah.
all. That's all. I mean, I like the bar thing. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
And I like like I said, I think the modern one got its scale right or proportions right.
Yeah. So newer one, yes, you would own one.
Yeah, I did that.
Now, as far as the tier, if over new cars, obviously I know where you would answer this, so I'm taking this out of the equation, so you can't answer it. Like no GT car,
Okay.
no RS.
Yep.
You got to choose between a newer coupe or that. Like, what do you pick? I'm sure you're going to pick a coupe, right?
Even if the Cabrio is an option, because that's solving one or the two problems out of the Targa. I mean, I would probably go towards the. I don't know. It depends on how I use the car.
Yeah.
I feel like I would go Targa. I think I could do the deal with the Targa.
Yeah.
I don't think I would be upset that I owned it.
Yeah, if you could only have one, right? Like, and
I think I would
it
want
could
it
do a
just-
lot of stuff for them,
I think
right?
I would
Like, you
want
could
it just
almost
for
be
the
like
fact that it's in
roofless.
between.
Yeah, it could do both. And I guess obviously from a design perspective, I'm sure that's the theory behind that car.
Yep.
Interesting, nevertheless. I think it's super expensive. I can't imagine they sell a ton of these.
No, I was just thinking about a GT3 Targa.
Don't even
touring.
don't even go there, man. Don't even go there, because if that, you never know, that might leak back. They may, hey, who's making this already? You have no idea.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, nothing's out of the realm with Porsche. It seems like, right? Anything and anything is possible at this point. Is as ridiculous you may think that may be, we may see one someday.
Somebody put that motor in it.
But yeah, hopefully not though. I know we're just poking fun and making jokes at this moment, but I think it's a neat car. So let's rewind back to some of the facts, right, on this car. So it's a turbocharged 3.0 flat six, making 443.
That's some big numbers.
It's a beast.
I mean, if we look back, not too long ago, the 996 Turbo was what, 420?
Yeah, it's a beast. I mean, I think this car does, with launch control and PDK, if you get the Carrera 2, I think that actually the 4S launches pretty hard. So I think if you get that, I think they're claiming like sub 4s in this car is 0 to 60, which is insane numbers.
Especially with the weight.
Yeah, because it's a heavy car. And on top of that, too, it's not designed. This car isn't, even though they're testing it at the ring right now, this is a Targa. It's not, this is their cruiser car. It's doing that.
So is it, I mean, I'm sure they haven't released the factual numbers yet. How much heavier is it than the 991? Nobody
No
knows.
clue. No
Yeah,
clue.
I mean,
it's going to be a little bit
bigger.
Well, it means it's the wide body.
Yep.
So
Well,
honestly,
the wide body.
so
this time.
yeah, so they may actually, it may actually be very close to the similar weight as the other one, because I'm sure the mechanical systems are the same. I don't think Porsche would
Why would you
redesign
why
that.
would
They
you
wouldn't
re-engineer
redo
it?
that.
Yeah.
So I bet the weight is probably similar. So if we rewind the clock and go back to a 991.2 Targa, it's probably similar to that. Which leads me to the next thing we're talking about, all wide body stuff. So let's talk about that for a minute. If you don't know, all 992s that are coming out are all wide bodies. We haven't seen a base.
It's a good move.
Yeah, we haven't seen a base Carrera yet, because they're doing all the flagship cars right now, as far as normal production flagship
all
cars.
the things that sell. I think the S models are where their bread and butter at.
Yeah, I think they probably sell the most of those. But so where I'm going with this is, now there's no narrow bodies in the whole lineup, right? So
That's
everybody always goes once, I want the wide body, I want the wide body. So my question, playing devil's advocate, is it go to one of those things where is it people start wanting something they can't have, and now does Porsche make a special narrow body? Because a narrow body doesn't exist. Because
Now-
remember all the older cars, 964, 993s, a lot of those RS cars are narrow body cars because the fender flares weighed more.
Yep.
So the car was supposed to be more slipstream for the ring, and all these things. That this is the reason why those cars were narrow body instead of wide body.
Yep.
Because they thought, well, the drag is better. They'd rather take that instead of the bigger tire
They saw the
contact.
numbers and the
Yeah,
engineering.
they rather take that than the bigger tire contact patch. So Are we going to see a special edition narrow body
We won't see a special
992
edition.
someday?
We'll see the GT cars do it. That's what they'll do. They'll make everything okay. The regular lineup is only going to be wide body, but now to get a narrow body, it's going to be a GT3.
I don't
think
know
so?
because I like the way the GT3 looks. It makes sense because the car produces so much
Or
power.
a GTS.
Yeah, the car produces make a lot of power, right? So you need a big contact patch in the rear. So that makes sense as to having the fender flares the way they are.
Production standpoint, if I don't have to do a narrow body for anything, I can do it's the same body across Carrera to.
Well, let me hit you with this because this is a super low production car that they've always kept in their arsenal, right? Club Sport. So what if they make
Ooh, I see where you're going.
a 992 Club Sport narrow body?
That'd be cool.
Now, is that a special car? Because then they're only going to make 400 of them, 500 of them. I'm just making this up. I'm just saying, like, okay, what if they go that way? Because
Inside
they're all
information.
about doing, like, special boutique things, going, maybe not initially, maybe not even this, like, model run, or whatever they end up switching the next, when they leave 992, whatever they go to next. Maybe that car becomes a special edition narrow body car where they make a narrow body and they only make so many of them. And now people want a narrow body car because the other cars are so big.
Do you think it's going to lose the wide body name and just be not a wide body anymore, but just what it is?
I think so.
Do you
I think it'll
that-
just,
do you think
that's
they're
the
gonna go-
production model.
they're
That's
gonna
just
go
what it
from-
is.
And they've finally been able to breach that because now it's a totally new engineered
Yeah.
number.
I think there's like anything is ebb and flow, right? So I think there's everybody who love, the wide body
new
craze, that, the wide body craze. Oh, wide body that. I just wonder if they're a little late to the game with that as far as saying like, because even like I've heard people, like, wide bodies are kind of played out. Everybody's got a wide body now. Everybody's wide bodying their older
Everybody's getting
cars.
flares, yeah.
Everybody who puts, is putting ST flares on a narrow body car. It's almost kind of like cliche now. Like it's almost if you have a narrow body and you keep it narrow body, it's almost like, yeah, man, you kept it narrow body, man. Like, oh my God,
did
that's so
something
awesome.
different.
You didn't freaking cut it up. And it's like, yeah, I just kept the car the way it was. I didn't do anything crazy. Like,
Yep.
So it makes me wonder. That's why I bring that up, because everything's going to be narrow body. I mean, a wide body, with the newer ones. I wonder if that narrow body desire is going to come back. People are going to say, I want a narrow body. And the reason why I say that is to support this is how many comparisons have we seen over the years, not even recently, just over the years on Instagram or social media, where people will take not even the 992, it's the 991 when the 991 first came out, not even the dot two, the first when they stepped into the 991, and they put a narrow body early car next to it, and they do the size comparison of like, look how big this car is, and look how small this car is, and the diehards are like, oh man, I wish I really had something narrow like that again, and maybe that can bring some of the old school mentality to a newer car if they can make a narrow body car, if they can find a way to do it.
So if they brought back a narrow body car and it wasn't a Club Sport, do you think they would keep the power the same, or do you think they've reached the limits of where that power can really be put down and handled?
I think they're probably at the limits. I don't know if you would detune the car, but maybe you could just find like almost kind of how
RS America comes back.
yeah, exactly. I was actually about to go there, and I was going to compare it to maybe like a Singer DLS, right? Where you find a way to make something super light, and maybe they can afford to make it narrower because they don't need to produce as much power. So maybe it's more of the exercise of, let's take as much we can out of this car. Like, this is like, they talk a lot of trash about like, oh, this is lighter, this is the Carrera T, but like legitimately take a lot out of the car, like saying like, okay, here's the deal. The car doesn't have, you can't
Barely
option.
any
Yeah, you can't
interior,
option for nav. There is no sound deadening of the car. Like there's raw floors in the car. There's
Paint to match colors.
exactly like super basic stuff. You got steel brakes. Like there's no analog, like all this kind of like really old school
But a street
stuff.
car.
But it's a street car, and maybe in the sense of the way you lighten up the body panels, you go away from steel, you do aluminum body panels, and you do all the stuff to try to make the car really light. Like you do an exercise where Porsche can do it from a crash standpoint and still be legal and make a car under 3,000 pounds, make it narrow bodied and make it a new car. Like that could be a real home run in my opinion. And that could speak to a lot of generations of guys with cars that say, hey, I'm an old school car guy, but that car weighs 2850 and it has 380 horsepower, which is plenty, and it's NA, and it has nothing in it, that reminds me of my 1970 911T. I want that car.
Yeah, that'd be a way Porsche could step back into that.
And you wonder if, from a design exercise, could they even do that, though? You know, could they even make that car? From a crash standpoint, I'm sure they could, but like maybe they could do it, and we joke about this stuff with allocations and limitations, but really limit it, like legitimately limit the car, like meaning like they don't make 2,000 of them, they don't make 3,000 of them, maybe they make like 800.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's a lot of work for that car, but I mean, unfortunately, it's going to be, people are going to have to pay up for that car, and then
less is more money.
Then you run into that whole situation of the guys that are able to afford that car. Are they really driving that car? And then it ends up sitting in some place for them to resell at some point.
Do you make stipulations at that point? I mean, because at that limited production, do you say, okay, it has to be, well, I guess you can't force anybody to do anything, but I mean, track only, that type of thing, or do you really?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I mean, because if it couldn't be done on the street, I mean, that seems.
And from a selfish standpoint, why don't they just try to do that? And then, like, if you can't register the car, well, then sell it to a guy that lives in Florida or register the car in Montana where you can get it registered, and then you could still drive it on the street if it can't pass your state admissions. I mean, there's ways around this. And I guess why I'm bringing that up is because personally, from a selfish standpoint, I really long to see
Porsche do a motorsport style.
Yeah, like a retro, like a true retro. Like, I know they're playing with that. They make the Speedster. I'm like, and I don't want to hate on that car. That I'm glad they made it, but I'm like a true retro style car, like where they thin the body of the car up. I mean, even if they have to change the chassis some, I mean, I don't care. Like, do what you got to do. Like, I just would see, it'd be an interesting exercise, I think.
With that, do you think somebody needs to come up like a production, like a Singer, but instead of going from the retro aspect of it, go more the water cooled and start designing something like that?
Yeah, I guess.
Would you?
I mean, it would take a lot of. Yeah, I guess it would. It's hard to answer that question though, because at the end of the day, is what's the end product going to look like? You can CAD all stuff all day long and sit there and play around with ideas of it, but until you actually see it in person, what's it going to really look like? It'd be a great idea, and I'm sure there's people that have played with it, but I mean, you got to really be invested, and that's the scary part, I think, for a lot of investors or a lot of people that maybe don't want to get into that realm of like maybe remanufacturing, like a Singer. Yep. Like if you took a 997 and tried to make it narrow, well, you got to make everything has to be on it. It has to be new. All the body panels, everything. You have to just take it all off, blow it all apart, and make everything new out of mold and start from there. And then, is it even possible at that point? Yep. I don't know, because it's already kind of a bigger car, but I guess it could still be narrow. Are the proportions going to be right? There's a lot of risk there. So,
or do you just start buying a bunch of narrow-bodied Carreras and then engineering it to be no interior or half interior?
Or do you take like a bare bones 996 Carrera 2, like a 99,
bring back the 996 that nobody thinks anything about,
and start like chopping that up? Because again, it would be under the same development plan that the 964 was with Singer, where people are like, these are throwaway cars. Nobody wants a 964.
Something that I learned that's kind of still on topic 996 wise. So the 996 turbos, the crankcases are 964. They're 964 stamped.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's new information for me too.
When I was looking around some 996 turbos, they were showing the cases, and you'll see a 964 dot part number.
Yeah, buddy.
So you know this. You know those are good then.
Then you know it's good because it's got 64 on it.
Exactly. It's perfect, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I know we went off tangent because we were talking about Targas there, but the whole point of that was circling back was to talk about the narrow body situation.
Yep.
And I don't think they're missing the boat. I think they're just part of the current trend in the world. I mean, it's possible we may see a narrow body again, but you make a good point though too. Is it possible for them to even make a narrow body with the power production that it's putting down at this point? Yeah. Is it going to be
there's going to be a safety
too much
standard
risk to put like a small tire on, a smaller tire? I don't know, because with the tire compound nowadays,
traction control, got stability control.
Yeah, I was going to say with tire compound nowadays, I think you could get away with making a narrow body. You really could.
Yep.
And like you said, all of those nannies that could help you not put you in the ditch, I think you could get away with it Now
Maybe they
again,
just don't want to. Maybe they saw that, hey, in our race car development, we know that the cars are wider.
Yeah.
We're not saying it, but
wider, longer.
now we've learned that these proportions, wheelbase wise and width wise, this is what works for a race car, and we actually need more. And I don't know if that's directly linked as far as production wise to what you can run on some of those classes. I'm sure it is as far as width.
Yeah.
All the classes. So they need that 992 to be that wide, because now the race car is going to go, a tenth, 2/10 faster, because we needed the extra half-inch width.
I agree with that. I mean, we've talked about this many times before in the past. It's, the R&D behind everything is trickled down from the race specs. So more than likely, we'll probably never see a narrow body again.
What about a wider body? Like, what if the new norm is the wide body?
Super wide body, like RSR, like the
there's
haunches are like really out there where you can't even park it in your garage. It's so like wide.
Yeah, exactly. Eventually at this Carrera to however high it goes for this body style, doing it during development is the new norm.
Mm-hmm.
Will we see it 992.2 have what now would be a wide body off that chassis?
Possibly. I mean, that's the trend. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
Not that it's needed, but
yeah. I think it'd be kind of neat. Maybe they'll get into like, and not that Porsche has any interest in this, but we always talk about them doing boutique things and doing strange things. Like maybe they can make an edition of the car where it's almost kind of like RSR-esque, but it's for the street. Almost kind of like Batim did with that BBI car that he made that we saw at the Peterson. Like that was a street legal car, and then he put an RSR kit on it,
which looks so good.
Now for drivability, it's going to suck for whoever owns that car. But if you live in areas with great roads, then you can live with that car.
Yep.
It looks amazing, but maybe the trend is what you're saying is going to get even wider, because like the standard wide body, and then you got like a super wide body. Who knows? I mean, I'm not hating on the wide bodies. I just think they're neat. I just thought it was a good talking point as far as to talk about like, well, we've totally gone away from the narrow body.
Yep.
Now, and it's just human nature. You can take anything in life. It's like, okay, well, I used to like barbecue chips, and no one ever makes barbecue chips anymore. Everybody's going to be like, I want barbecue chips.
Man, you take
if
it
you
away,
want something
you
you cannot have. So is there going to be a desire that's building? And it may take some time to build that momentum, but I think people will say, I would really like to see a narrow body at some point in the newer car. Oh, I would like to see this. Is that fact? I don't know. Am I just shooting in the dark? Possibly. Who knows? But I just thought it was an interesting talking point, especially since the new car has gone to that. So,
yep. And so now that the Targas are out, we can only assume that the turbo is coming next.
Oh, yeah. And I think there's been tons of spy shots on that car too as well, right? So,
how long before you think the GT cars are going to be released? I mean, I know they're out, but not out. I mean, we've seen.
I think we might start seeing the first road examples of that car, if we're lucky, maybe fall.
Yeah.
And because I would think from a production year, they may see them now, but they may be calling them 2020. Maybe we'll see people start taking delivery of them in spring. Maybe the GT cars, like the people that are like at the top of the list, the ones that have bought the 918, the 911R, all these people,
the ones that get the call.
Yeah. Speaking of which, that I don't think we really talked about it. Like we've touched on it real briefly, but before we close out, let's talk about the GT3 real fast. Not in detail, but just one aspect of it. What is that thing called? The swan neck, like spoiler, like on the rear. What is that?
The upside down wing.
Yeah,
yep.
Is that what that's called? The swan neck. What are your thoughts on that thing?
I guess it has to happen. I don't.
It's not really an answer. It's like,
the only reason I say that is because they obviously had it the other way for so long. It wasn't making enough downforce for what they're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I can only imagine
race cars are doing it.
Yes,
I mean,
race cars are doing it.
There are RSRs that is set up that way and has been for a while.
I mean, if the GT2 RS already has the Nürburgring record, and then Manthey tweaked it a little bit, and they dropped 7 seconds, I can't imagine what they're going to do with the 992. It's going to be
blistering.
Another record.
Blistering, right?
And
how's the tire technology even keep up with those cars?
Well, aren't they running the Cup R's?
Yeah, I
So-
think, yeah, and I joke when I say that. I think what I meant by that is
Yeah.
they're developing the car, and
So
and
fast,
Michelin
yeah.
is sitting right next to them developing a tire to fit
Exactly.
that. Like
So you're gonna
literally.
make 1,000 horsepower? All right.
Okay, cool.
Our
You're
tire
gonna pull
works.
2 Gs. Okay, we'll make sure it happens. We can do it.
Exactly. It's
So.
gonna be silly quick.
Yeah, my opinion on that is, I'm kind of with you on it. It kind of has to happen. I guess if you're mimicking race car stuff, it's race car style stuff, and
It's not just because the Senna has one.
yeah. And I know there's a lot, and that's why actually I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one reason why I brought it up, is because there's a lot of people that go, Porsche's just copying the Senna. It's like, no, it's been on their race car for a long time.
It's an engineering design. That makes sense.
The difference is they're just now putting it into their street car. That's the only difference. Like, so it's been around. It's not like something that just pulled off the shelf and like, hey guys, what do you think about this?
Yep, the downforce happens under the wing.
Exactly. So, well, I think we're about out of time. But before we close out, just want to say, make sure that you guys check us out on Monday on YouTube, on Thursdays as well. This video will be out, and then Fridays for our mixed bag. We thank you guys so much for listening, supporting us, subscribing, sharing with your friends, all of those great things that you do on social media. The more we grow, the better everything's going to be for everyone listening to the content. So we definitely thank you guys so much, and we want you guys to get on there, make sure that you subscribe and get your friends to subscribe, and just share the love and help grow this PCAR family. Thank you guys so much.
Yep, thanks, guys. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of PCAR Talk. Connect with us on Instagram at PCAR Talk or online at pcartalk.com.